Hello, just wanted to do a quick recap of both locations there. Mercury Plastics has been a customer of ours. They're on their fifth roofing solar project with us. They needed a roof and didn't really want to write a check for it, and they wanted to also capitalize on all the incentives that were available. They didn't do it to be green; they did it because financial reasons. So roof cost was 879,000. Solar was 1,024,000. Total project 1.9. They almost got 1.8 million worth of incentives, and then incentives covered all but 119,000 of it. And then they save 73,000 per year annually if rates stay the same. So that's why they did it. So some states offer incentives. Illinois does. It's SREC money, solar renewable energy credits, and they charge everyone on their bill for this money. So they're not just being nice. It's the customer's money, but if you don't do a project, you don't get those incentives back. Same with the power company. There's an incentive available on the inverter, and it's money that they got off the bills as well. So yeah, Trump is cutting the biggest part of the incentive, the 40% tax credit. Normally, the whole country is 30% federal tax credit off the roof, solar, switchgear, EV chargers. But Illinois or Chicago area has been designated an energy community based on employment numbers. So lucky us, we get an extra 10%. So it's a 40% tax credit. If the project isn't started by July 4th of 2026, you could lose these incentives. So that's called a safe harbor program. So we really have to get the ball rolling on that. And the part of the problem is ComEd is taking, they used to take 6 weeks for an interconnection approval, but we can't do anything without ComEd giving us that approval. Now, a lot of people are applying, and we've got one project, pretty big one, and we're on 16 weeks for an approval, and everything is stalled. We can't order equipment. We can't fill out permits. We can't fill out applications for the SREC money without that. So that's taking longer and longer. So July 4th seems like a long way away, but it's really right around the corner. If it takes 16 weeks to get an approval, and then we got to get the ball rolling. So that is what's going on here. So the system size is a 55 kilowatt system, 71,000 kilowatt hours every year, and we guarantee that number for 30 years. And there's also a monitoring system. And so, for some reason, if it's not producing what it says, you get an alert, we get an alert. Right now, that's setting off 100% of your energy use there. And because there's a lot more roof left, if you added some manufacturing equipment in there or started using more energy, you can easily add onto that solar array. So 102 panels. There's no penetrations in the roof whatsoever. It's a weighted ballasted system. And then everything's kind of low voltage DC till it gets to the inverter. Then the inverter goes out to where your power meter is, where the energy meter is, and ComEd installs what they call net metering. So if you're closed on 4th of July, you're producing energy, you're not using it, it gets measured and stored on the grid as a one-for-one credit. So you get that back at nighttime or other times when you're using the energy. So in this situation, the roof you said was 175. So if you just pay the 175, there's never an ROI on it. You never get a return on it. It's just a huge cost that you can depreciate over 39 years. But if you combine it with solar, so it's got to be one project. You're doing a solar project that happens to need a roof. So when you combine these two, and we have a funded option, so they add on the funding on the front end, so you get the incentives on that larger number as well. So 408,000 project cost with the funding. You make no payments until the project's fully completed and turned on. So you'd get the new roof, solar turned on and everything. If the roof's going to happen in the spring, then you might have your first payment, September of next year. So the incentives cover all but 129,000 of it. And when projects have a bigger bill and a lot more panels, the numbers get a lot better. But and usually we can cover a lot more than that. But if you look at the way it cash flows, so we used our 7-year funding option. So like I said, no payments until the project's fully completed and turned on. Um, it, those payments show up to $4,800 per month on your bill. You get the savings, $7,139. We put a 3% accelerator on that. Then you get 4 different checks, 2,000 or so per check every quarter, and it adds up to $8,300 each year for 7 years. They hold a deposit for year 15 because they're really paying you to have it turned on for 15 years, but they're paying you in the first 7. That tax credit, 103,000, is good the year you do it, obviously, but you can also amend returns going back 3 years, and there's also a market for them. If you couldn't use them or didn't have somebody that could use them, people are getting up to 90 cents on the dollar for those. Then you get the depreciation. You get it, most of it in year 1. So on this first year, the project's actually positive 145,000, and it only goes negative in year 5, $949,000. And then in year 6, it goes a little more negative as you're making those payments. And in year 7, the most it goes down is negative 82,000. So if your roof is 175,000, the most you're ever going to be out is this 82,000. Now, it takes a little longer to get that ROI because you're only getting 8,000 in SREC credits, and you're only getting a little bit of savings as far as, so if it was a bigger project, we've seen these projects never go negative. So 9-year ROI after it's fully paid in year 7, it's still an ROI. So versus 0. Lindoo number 2, almost the same, slightly different because the usage we were shown was slightly different. So a 58 kilowatt system, basically the same, 100% energy offset, roof cost the same, solar cost almost the same. So the incentives cover all but 128,000 of that project. And here with the cash flow, it's actually an 8-year ROI after it's fully paid and you've made your last payment. And that one, the most it goes negative is 79,000 in year 7 when you make your last payment. That's the most it goes negative versus paying 175,000 cash for a roof. It's only negative 79,000, but then you do get an ROI after it's paid. So the warranty, we use American companies, American equipment. So the panels are assembled in Georgia. They do some processing in South Korea, but everything they can do here, they're doing. And the panels have that 30-year warranty, and it's including the production number as well. The racking system's made right here in Illinois as well. So Camcraft, great company. They did roof and solar, but their one mistake is they did the roof separate. They did the roof a year before they did the solar. They missed out on a 40% tax credit on the cost of that roof. The main issue with the timeline is ComEd giving that interconnection approval, which used to be 6 weeks. Now we've got one that's up to 16 weeks. So you put the 16-week timeline in there in which we can't do anything until we have that interconnection approval. And then you add the other things, permitting and ordering equipment and all that. That's why pre-construction is 25 to 26 weeks. We need to get the project started before July 4th to just make sure we lock in all these incentives. And then once it's up and running, the roof's on, your system could be put in. It says 8 to 10 weeks, but it'll probably be shorter than that.
About a year and a half later, we can say never paid a dime for anything. Got over $2 million worth of solar equipment on the roof, and we're going great. Jim and his team at Revenue Task Force did a great job finding money everywhere between incentives and grants and rebates, tapping into federal money, state money, the energy companies are offering an incentive. So it was really, really a great program. Really happy with what we did here.
And with that, thanks for listening. Give me a call if you have any questions. Thanks.